So welcome everyone. This is our first event here for WUG Colorado. So thank you guys for spending some time with us. Hopefully today we got hopefully a topic that a lot of us ultimately get at the beginning of the year as we're kind of getting new requirements, new goals, new objectives for the year. So hopefully what we share today in terms of just how do you kind of deal with some changes in your Workfront environment will be something that matters to all of you guys. So let's jump in. Basically, we're going to do a little introduction, a little bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to jump into the meat of the content, which is kind of a 4-step plan that we have for how do you effectively deal with change in your workflows or your Workfront environment. And so we'll go through that. We'll leave some time at the end for a little bit of open discussion. So hopefully you guys have some questions or need some answers maybe to some of your own use cases. So we'll go into that as well. Again, just a quick notice, we are recording this, so I have started the recording. All of these are recorded. They ultimately do get dropped into a YouTube channel that we have. I do have a link to that as well in case you guys don't know the location for the YouTube channel. If you don't want to participate live, feel free to just watch this at a later time if you're not comfortable. So also just some house rules just to make sure that everything is a good, focused, safe space, no self-promotion or pitching of any kind. This is kind of a group for all of us to be able to kind of learn and communicate. Don't contact folks outside, of the group unless they have given a consent, or if you've asked if you can be contacted, go ahead. Now for Joaquin and I, you guys, I'm telling you right now, we're open. You guys can hit us up on LinkedIn. We've got our email addresses as well on these slides, so you guys can get a hold of us anytime you want. And you guys, if you share your use cases, here, in our communications and while we're doing one of these settings, just make sure that before you share it out to others that you get that person's okay to go ahead and share that information. A little bit of helpful information. February calendar of events, obviously the 27th, right now that's our user group. So if you guys are not aware, out on Experience League underneath events, there are webinars, as you guys know, things like release notes. I put some of those on here. February 10th, as an example, there's a Admin 101 webinar, as well as our Thursday for maximizing Fusion. So if you guys haven't been out to Experience League, look for events that are coming up for January and February. There are several. There are multiple WUGs. So Toronto has a WUG coming up tomorrow. Their focus is on Fusion tips, tricks, and best practices. So if that's something of interest to you, you guys can go out to the registration page for events, sign up there. Philadelphia has one coming up. There is a combined one on the 29th of January for both AEM and Workfront teams. And they're going to talk about campaigns and how to use some of the Adobe tools like Workfront, like AEM in terms of your campaign. So if that is of interest to you, go ahead and sign up for those WUGs. There's a lot. We'll talk a little bit in a couple of slides about the Workfront Champion office hours, but there are some office hours coming up at the end of February where, again, Fusion will be the topic and scenarios that everyone should know or be aware of if you have Fusion in your environment. So again, just a counter of events. If you guys haven't had a chance to get busy or go out into Experience League or out onto the WUG chapters, there's quite a bit of stuff out there for you guys. I mentioned the YouTube channel. This slide deck will be sent out after we're all said and done so that you guys have all of this information and these clickable links, but there is a YouTube channel where all of our recorded sessions that we're doing like today get posted out there so that you guys can go back and refresh, or if you missed, you can see the whole thing. So I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Joaquin.
Oh, great. So just kind of let you guys know, since you're already maybe part of the WUG teams, whether that's with us in Colorado or maybe it's more closer to regionally where you are, You do have access to the Adobe Workfront Champion office hours too, where a lot of the great work that's being done is provided as kind of a open door to you. You can always attend these webinars. You can even reach out to them for questions and hopefully some answers on things that might be sticky wickets for you. So look for those. They had a really good one about project management, a little bit about how you organize your projects and all that kind of stuff. So if you're still sort of thinking through some of that information, you can always go and take a look at that. So the next slide, please. And then coming up is a content supply chain discussion that's going to happen as well. So please, if you're interested in that, kind of knowing a little bit more of the end-to-end process and how you can streamline and create some efficiencies in there, there is a specific WUG for content supply chain. So this is like just that overall view of everything that's happening there. In today's market, it's all about speed. So this is really going to help you out as you start thinking through some of those things in terms of your end-to-end process. And then, of course, we wouldn't be remiss without mentioning that Adobe Summit is coming up this year. So one note, if you've been to a Summit before, usually it's a Monday through Thursday, but this year it's actually Sunday through Wednesday. Sunday is going to be typically that first day is like if you're doing trainings or live session stuff, you can do, you get your accreditation too. So if you want to do some of that stuff there, that usually happens on that first day. And then of course, all the open sessions will happen Monday through Wednesday for this as well. Always in Las Vegas, always at the Venetian. So just note that. Kurt and I will be attending Summit this year too as well. So for anybody that's part of the Denver WUG, we'll probably set something up in terms of a meet and greet, maybe during a breakfast or a lunch type of thing. So look for more information when it comes to that as well. So next slide. And then this is just part of how to get in touch with our chapter. Obviously, if you are working on Workfront within Colorado or the Mountain States, you can be a part of our WUG. Actually, all the WUGs are pretty much open to everybody. The information that we share here is pretty universal. There's not going to be anything that's going to be specific, like Workfront works better in high altitude versus sea level. There's nothing that is specific that way. Although sometimes I wonder, because it does seem that things seem to move a little bit faster where we're at, but that's neither here nor there. But you can also see other chapters and the webinars that they might have or the open sessions they might have. Additionally, as we get more people into our WUG, we'll probably look to have some live events. So opening the door for us to kind of meet at a central location, those kind of things. So kind of look for those times too as well. So next chapter. Well, here it is. So this is what we're all here for, talking about planning of effective workflow changes. And this is, we kind of broke this up into 4 sections: the why, the what, the when, and how the change occurs. And this, if you're familiar with basic project management processes, this kind of follows that same level. Like what we hope to teach and show is some stuff that's already sort of inherent into people's understanding of how to deal with projects. So you're going to see a lot of similar elements here, but this also does start to talk about big picture perspectives in here. And the one thing I want to say before we even begin is all change is a process, and change does take time. Obviously, there's going to be stakeholders that want things to happen a little bit faster. So one of the preventions to kind of creating something that maybe isn't as useful because we're just trying to solve pain points is to really slow it down a little bit and think through the ramifications of what we're doing. Who's affected? How are they affected? Do roles and responsibilities change? All of those things need to be considered in this process. It can't just be, hey, we need to stop the pain of this moment and we need to start making changes right now. Because usually that just kind of replaces one pain point for another. So next slide. So the first part is the planning for the effective workflow changes. The why do we need to alter what we do? Sometimes it could be that we don't have it in place already and we need to put it into the system. Some of it might be identification of an efficiency process. So we want to change what we're doing currently and make it a little bit more efficient. Or maybe we're opening up the scope. Maybe it's more of an end-to-end process in campaign planning or promotion planning or product launches. And so we're trying to create some stability into that process within what we're doing. So obviously, we're always going to have some roadblocks, and research tells us that our human response to any change is fight, flight, or freeze. And I am sure that you or other people you've worked with have experienced one or all of these at some point when dealing with change within your organization. It could be even as simple as even getting into Workfront for the very first time. I'm not sure what your maturity level is with Workfront currently, but if there was a process where you brought Workfront into your team or your department, even right there, there was probably a little bit of one of or all of three of these things here. And so because this is sort of a natural response, we do have to sort of work against it a little bit and kind of open up that process. And so again, what helps is slowing it down, really thinking through what the request is, start thinking globally rather than locally in terms of that change, like how is this change going to affect other parts of what we're doing, so that when those things do get bumped into, you're sort of ready for them in the process. So next slide. So very first thing is define the purpose and scope. We want to identify the business problems. We want to clarify what teams and roles are going to be part of this process and affected. And then also document the current state of things. It's always good to get things on paper so that you can see them. You can also articulate this to people that are going to be part of the process so that everybody is basically on the same page with everything that you're looking to change. As then when you do make the change, we see where it connects to. So if we have something that we're trying to fix and we've clearly shown what that looks like in our current workflow, we can show how that is going to change and make things better for us. The next slide, please. And here I just created a basic discovery guide example. So this is something you can share with your stakeholders so they can start kind of defining some of these things ahead of time, or you can take this to a meeting and sort of go down the checklist and start to capture some of these problems. So right off the top here, the business goals and strategies are: what are the primary business objectives? And the business doesn't necessarily have to be the enterprise business, but what you do as a team business. How do we do business for the business, if you were to say it another way? And so just kind of defining like what the objectives are. Maybe it's creating efficiencies. Maybe it's having a better intake process. Maybe it's understanding where the design department or marketing departments interject and are coupled on a grander end-to-end process. So that helps to identify some of those areas. Of course, we want to identify the pain points. What is causing some issues right now? What is preventing us from doing our best work? What is preventing us to be more supportive? What's preventing us from meeting the teams that we support where they're at? So those kind of questions that are being asked. And then it's always nice to have a wish list of items. So what ideal features, even if you already know Workfront top to bottom, there's probably still things you would love to see the tool do. And so you can start talking about those. You may not be able to solve them on the day one launch, but you can build for the future. In some cases, if you don't have Fusion already as part of one of your add-ons to Workfront, you could think about how, when you get to a place to adding Fusion, you can automate and make things a little bit easier for you. And then you also want to identify the current state of things, like what tools do you use beyond Workfront? Or maybe you're not using, a team is not using Workfront currently and want to migrate into the tool. So just asking those questions on what they're using in order to communicate and do the work, how they manage it, how do they have status checks, all of those kind of things. And then from a broad perspective, what are the workflows? So I'm just outlining a couple. This might not always apply to everything that we're doing, but basically like request and intake, project management, review and approvals, and then any additional steps that are needed. Maybe it's a L&C review. Maybe it's you need executive approval at some place. Maybe it's a 30, 60, 90 review, those kind of things along your process. So you're just making sure that you capture some of that information. Maybe it's product development, maybe you have a tech team, any kind of thing that might be part of this workflow that you want to account for. And then obviously, what are the bottlenecks that occur most often? You might see this as part of your pain points, but it also does allow for visualization of other things that don't necessarily are considered pain points, but maybe are places where you can see it slow down. It's really hard to move past. Maybe you have extensions beyond what your normal SLA is providing those kind of things. And so here you just might show some other considerations in this process. And maybe during solutioning for your pain points, you also solution your bottlenecks too. That kind of frees up some other thing you do. So it's good to have that information right there. Next slide, please. Gathering requirements. So that's part of what we just did a little bit in that form, but there are also some useful tools that we put here. So, you know, obviously want to meet with stakeholders and have little workshops. You might do like an over-the-shoulder review with somebody to see how they currently do things, and you can see what steps they take. Kind of look for the technical and the functional requirements, things that have to be done in order for something to move forward, and then identifying dependencies, like things that are definitely part of the process that can't be avoided regardless of what we try to do in here. And you can see here we just did a little diagram. It's kind of a fishbone diagram. It just kind of shows a drop down of steps. You can also workflow map it with your decision-making triangles where you have documents or create any sort of artifacts, any kind of thing like that. So again, it's always nice to sort of put it down on paper so people can see it rather than having it in our minds and just talk about it where it seems more theoretical. We can actually outline what those are. And in some cases too, if you engage different business teams or stakeholders, you can show where they come in on this process. So maybe you create lanes for like your design team or your marketing teams or your dev teams, those kind of things, if they are part of this workflow process too as well. So the next slide, please. And then create a change strategy. So sometimes it's nice if, again, depending on complexity of what you're doing, this may not necessarily be something that you need to fully map out. But if it does involve a large scope, like again, campaign end to end, then this might be where you want to sort of outline a little bit more and kind of understand who's responsible for what part of the change strategy, whether that's communication, documentation, all of those kind of things here. And so it's just kind of basically a clean one-sheeter for you. Next slide, please. Okay, well, I'm just going to stop there to see if there's any questions that came through at this point. Kurt, anything that came through in the chat or Q&A?
I'm not seeing anything yet. Nope.
Okay, great.
I think we're good.
Awesome. Well, we'll move on then. So develop the effective workflow change. So what do we do and need to alter and add or remove within the system? So build the workflow in Workfront. So this is where, if you're a system admin here today, this is going to be where you live and where you flourish. So I'm not going to go through too much of this, but you understand the building of access levels, the custom forms and fields and automations that you would have, project tasks, templates, understanding what that looks like. This process can be a living organic process. You can, as you're having status meetings, you can build portions of it and present it and show like how that is going to be built out and how you're kind of formulating sort of the structure within there, getting feedback from your stakeholders that say, yes, we like the form the way it looks. Yes, we like dashboards you're creating. Yes, we like the templates you're creating, all that kind of stuff. The roles and responsibilities obviously is really going to be important too. So if you're adding new roles and new responsibilities within the workflow, is understanding where those interjections happen, and then to actually document it. I would even suggest on some level that if you're doing sort of a larger build out process change or workflow change, to build an actual Workfront project that you also manage and you can show and allow your stakeholder to come in so they can see how the tool actually works too, if they're not a part of Workfront. Or even if they are a part of Workfront, it's always nice to use the tool to kind of do your project planning too for this. So yeah. Next slide, please. Integrate the supporting systems. So in today's marketing environment, we're not all just sitting in one tool. There's a whole MarTech stack that does a lot of work for us, especially when we're trying to look at ROIs and we're trying to see engagement. We're creating journeys and all of this kind of stuff within the tool. So if there's a need to bring some of those tools in there to start that conversation early in the process to understand what's dependent Good examples of this is like Salesforce. Maybe you have teams that work in Jira. So you want to be able to kind of manage a little bit of that work and have them still live within their tool sets so that you don't have to force anybody into Workfront. But then start the conversation with maybe the IT team or those system admins for those tools to see what we can do to integrate or talk about how do we get information from one system to the next. And then validate that data mapping and automation. So there might be some need to change fields. There might be an entire different form where you're just using it for metadata tagging, all of those kind of things. So that's when some of those questions and some of that solutioning will come up in this process. Next slide, please. Test the workflow and prepare documentation. So Kirk found this software here, Workflow Pro, which helps you kind of think through some of that stuff if you want to engage in that. But you can also do some of this by just like kind of building that framework out yourself, either in a Word document, Excel document, and conduct that QA process or the UAT process once you've got things built and you really want people to come in there. UAT is a very important part. This is a step I would suggest not skipping or to lightly cruise by. You want to make sure that everything is working the way we think it is, that we've done basically an 80-20 build on it. So we've captured about 80% of what we think people will do in there, and then be adaptable to the 20%. We can't always understand how people are going to use the tool. You know, sometimes we may not understand even people's work processes or how they kind of even just get into the system. So being accountable for that and kind of understanding what that does helps within that UAT process. And then along with that, from what we learn, can help us build our training materials or even think about training when we're kind of doing the UAT testing. And I do suggest regular check-ins with the UAT process. So if you do 4 weeks of UAT, if you do 2 weeks of UAT, it doesn't matter. Just at some point, have a check-in, usually at the halfway mark if it's a little bit slower, or weekly if you guys spread it out over a longer period of time, so that you can change and alter everything as it comes up. So next slide, please. And here I just sort of built like just a UAT checklist. So I like to send something to my testers to say, hey, we built this for you. Here's some things I want you to focus on so that we make sure that we have dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's. And so this is what I would have them do. I definitely would like them to have the different personas or the user experience. So if people are coming in at a different level or for a different reason, but they're still in that workflow process, to sort of have them be that person or find people to be that persona. So a couple of those as an example are like a worker, a manager, a group admin. So they experience what we've done and what they see, because it's not always going to be the same depending on what that person's reason is. And then stress test the phases of the work stream. So really do break it down. So if you have a request portion of it and traffic portion of it, test that. How is object creation? So in this case, does it convert to a project or a task, or does it stay as an issue? So test that. What does that mean? Is there a review and approval process for that request? Test that. Object management. So here it's project management or task management or issue management, whatever we're doing. I've even seen people do automations to create programs, which acts as, for them in their cases, as campaigns. So there's a whole system that basically creates that for them. And so they've tested having them test that and make sure that works too. So even stuff that doesn't seem natural in object management. Review and approval processes, what does final deliverables look like, and then prep for completion and completion of those objects. So testing all of that process. Again, depending on the complexity of what you're working on, you may not do all of these, but this is just sort of a stepping stone, or you can add or subtract from this stuff. And then the last three are just like the kind of common things, but sometimes get missed because people aren't really thinking about them. So reporting, do we create dashboards for you? Do we have status reports for you? Do we have capacity planning for you? Those kind of things. Do we even look at the bean counting of it? How many projects are being created? How many people are working on them? All those kind of things. Who's been engaged? Who hasn't been engaged? All those kind of things can be part of this UAT process. And communications. One thing that we always talk about Workfront and we try to support is the single source of truth. So if that's really the case, we should be doing communications within the tool, not a DMing from some other place, emails, taps on the shoulders, I don't know, what are the other communications that are out there, those kind of things that are not part of our single source of truth. So trying to get that into the system and try to build and see if that's functional and usable for people to do. And then engage your super users. So if you're doing UAT testing and you already know people that you think are going to be the champions and cheerleaders for this new process zone, definitely get them into UAT testing and have them also bend and break the tools because they will know best for you. So I think this is basically the last slide of my bit. So any questions on anything that came in?
I'll say, Joaquin, just from my personal experience, this page right here is kind of saved my bacon. We've done stuff before where, you've built out some new dashboards, you built out some new reporting, and then you start logging into different types of roles and users, and all of a sudden you're pulling up those dashboards. There's no data, there's no information, and you kind of realize, oh my gosh, I forgot to put permissions for people onto reports, or I missed the worker, or I missed the managers, which this whole reporting or dashboard was for. So I've had this this exact process help me many times before I got it in front of, I'll say, a large number of people. And it's like, oh, okay. So doing a lot of the login stuff and checking your personas, I think is huge.
Well, great. Cool. So I'm going to pass it on to Kurt to bring us home on the rest of the 2 steps.
Okay. So Joaquin's went through the first couple, so we're kind of now on the 3rd step. We've basically gone through, done our requirements, figured out what kind of change needs to get done and how our stakeholders want it done. We've now built it for the most part, tested it, started getting it in front of people as pilot groups, things of that nature. And now it's actually time to launch it, right? So this is the when part. When do we put our plan into place? So for the most part, Joaquin kind of covered this early on as part of some of the requirements, but now it's time to actually do some kind of communication rollout. And in a sense, for communications, there's all kinds of different ways, right? We have emails. We can actually do something inside of Workfront if we wanted to. You can send out one-pagers, right? If you're part of a marketing group and you've got creatives, they can design something like what you see here on the right side, to kind of engage your users, maybe send it out in an email format like this in terms of telling you what's happening, what things are changing, what's the timeline for this stuff to start happening. But again, it really boils down to, kind of clear communications around, hey, this was the old process and now we're moving to this new process or this new workflow, and just letting your users know that the time has come, basically. So that's basically what our slide is here, is just getting ready for your communications. How you do that can be a lot of different ways. Training, doing Zoom calls, office hours, kind of something similar to what we're doing here in a WUG, right? Where you may open yourself up as an admin or the person that kind of helped build the process with your stakeholders, and maybe you guys hold meetings for several weeks to have people kind of come in, see the process, ask questions, get ready for the launch. Maybe you do an event like you see here on the right, where you pick a specific day. You got all the bosses there, and maybe people get food, candy, whatever it may be, and you basically do the launch in some kind of almost like a marketing event, like what Apple does on their Apple Days. So however you want to do it, these are just kind of some creative ideas for the most part. I do recommend, typically when you can, office hours or live type training, in my opinion, tends to do well. We do have folks that like to read or basically have kind of a document, with graphics, steps, things of that nature. So we usually do both. If we're going to do kind of a major launch, we'll do office hours, hands-on training sessions, and then we'll be also, sending out or providing, 1-pagers, 2-pagers, some kind of visual where people can have that as a desk drop, and go through and say, okay, yeah, this is what I remember to do. We are trying to move more, especially with AI, things of that nature, right? Self-service is becoming more and more as we have less people, maybe, or maybe not enough people. Self-service is another thing that we are almost always trying to automate or build in, where people can go somewhere and maybe leverage tools like Pendo or Jumpseat or something like that that can do some interactive guidance for your folks as well. And then obviously just having your stakeholders and your managers from the training helping to reinforce typically is the best practice for getting engagement. So you're in the go live process, right? You have the new process. It's in place. People are starting to use it, whatever that may be. What happens now, right? Well, obviously you're going to start getting feedback, right? You may be doing surveys at this point in time as part of your communication plans, saying, hey, as you go through this new process, at the end, you may be getting a survey, or you're sending out surveys saying, how was your experience? Can you answer these 1 or 2 questions? You guys have all seen it on your mobile phones, or even inside of Workfront sometimes when you get the pop-ups to say, hey, can you take a few minutes to answer a couple of questions? So however you choose to do it, you're basically monitoring the new process to see, is it meeting your needs? On the right here, I just kind of provided, this is an old school tool. I think it's very effective. As an example, you're trying to figure out, you're getting all these surveys and you're trying to figure out where people are having issues. A fishbone diagram basically kind of helps you identify maybe the different areas in your process that people may be getting stuck. So it's you going through your survey, taking a look at like, hey, I got stuck on the intake process, or somebody might put something like, I went all the way through, but then on the submission part of it, I had issues. And so for a fishbone, you can have things like, well, maybe one of your topics is intake, maybe another one is submission, and you're identifying basically from your issues, your tickets, your surveys, where people are basically struggling, so that you can kind of get this back to your group or your team relatively quickly to say, well, hey, we're seeing a lot underneath this particular topic, and it seems like it's these 3 things all the time. We're going to have to make a change or an update to the process. So if you guys haven't seen something like this, this is kind of a slick tool. It's also something that you could use for your management, your stakeholders. It's kind of a cool thing just to put in front of people to say, this is where we're going to be targeting updates and quick results for the most part. Once we're done with go live, we've done our launch. We've communicated to folks. Folks are actually using the new process. We're assuming everything is inside of Workfront. We're basically to our last stage, which is basically analyzing. So it's starting to look at, did the change do what we wanted it to do? When we did our requirements and our KPIs and we talked to our stakeholders, are we moving the needle the way they wanted us to? So this is the how. How did we do it, and was it effective? So basically measuring adoption, and I know a lot of you guys are in marketing groups. I am, I work with a lot of marketing teams. So, seeing your KPIs, like think about your web pages, trying to get traffic, your emails, how many people are opening all this stuff. Same kind of thing. We should have some kind of metrics from our stakeholders. If there was a pain point, how are we going to measure that pain point got fixed or is going to be fixed? Maybe it's a speed issue, like, hey, it's taking us too long to have somebody put something into our intake queue and then actually get it to a team to work on. So we'd like to shrink that process. So maybe it's, how long did it take to submit? How long did it take to actually review? How long did it take to approve? How long did it take to actually then build out in a project plan and execute the work? And maybe you're trying to go from a certain set of days to a lower set of days. Joaquin mentioned this early on, right? You identified maybe bottlenecks or areas that maybe you really need engagement in that nobody's hitting. Well, are we seeing people now hitting those areas or moving through maybe our flow to where they're getting to the areas that they never got to before? So again, whatever it may be, now's the time to kind of start taking a look at, are we meeting our needs? And if not, then what kind of changes do we still need to make? And again, whether it's the fishbone or other ways that you guys come up with, as we're getting our feedback, what other ways do people want us to make change so that we can get that efficiency or that quality? Gathering feedback. So again, workflow diagram. This is just to kind of illustrate. Some people are visual learners, so I thought this would be kind of helpful. How you gather your feedback. Surveys are a great idea. I mean, you guys know we could literally make a survey on a form if we wanted to, and have that trigger after somebody goes through a process and say, hey, can you just fill out these handful of questions so that we can make sure that we're meeting all your guys' needs. You could use other tools, SurveyMonkey, any kind of survey tool. You guys could do desk drops, depending on how close your teams are. You could literally put some kind of piece of paper like you get sometimes from the DMVs or whatnot. Please fill this out before you leave type thing. However you want to do it. If you have group admins, those are great people and resources to utilize in terms of saying, are you guys getting feedback in certain areas of the new process, and what does that look like? Is it good? Is it bad? And again, you guys can see just kind of the flow in terms of, if you're using surveys, was it a good positive review? Great. Maybe we send them a nice thank you email and say thanks for doing the survey so that we have some engagement. Or maybe it was negative and you kind of dig into what was the issue, and then we're doing follow-up emails letting them know that we heard you and we've resolved that for you. So any kind of outreach that you guys can do through to your users is definitely helpful. This is also a good point in time where you might want to do office hours or extend your office hours, for a period of time after the process is launched, and say, look, bring us directly any issues that you're seeing so that you can kind of hear it right from the horse's mouth for the most part. But again, whiteboarding or kind of getting your ideas on paper, like Joaquin said, is definitely helpful so you don't miss anything. So that's basically our 4-step process for the most part in terms of, how you guys can go through and essentially make change, or if you're being asked to make change. So what we want to do now is basically just kind of open it up to see, one, does anybody have any comments, questions specifically around what we provided, or maybe there's some use cases that you guys are going through right now where it's like, hey, we'd like to ask some of the team members here, we have this use case and we're struggling with certain things, any ideas? So I'll open it up and see, does anybody have any comments, questions based on anything that we covered? Don't be shy.
So I just want to interject really quickly. Certainly people can jump into, but I just wanted to say too, there's kind of a little discussion going on right now. Kayla had asked a question about how do you kind of engage your executive teams and stuff. And there's some really good comments. So please read those as well. But really do look at your champions, your super users, your oftentimes group admins, if you have a build out like that, where you have people that are kind of helping you do some of the work within there, to really spread the word. Those oftentimes these are a resource that is sort of overlooked because you guys were all in the tool working every day, kind of don't have enough time to breathe sometimes, it feels like. But really getting them to help tell the story and sell the tool a little bit. Maybe sell is not the right word, but to basically encourage people with adoption and integration of the tool for their work management. You can always invite them to your office hours so they can talk freely about what their experience is. Even get them involved in your support queue. So if you have enhancement requests, some of these requests can go to their group admins for those specific areas, so that they're kind of like your front line and kind of helping you work through some of those tough questions. So yeah, just a quick interjection there to not forget those super users and those champions. Oh, and it sounds like it might be muted for the attendees.
Oh, are we really? Oh, that's no good. No, they look like they're open. You guys should be able to talk. Ah, Oh, you need presenter. I gotcha. I gotcha. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Let's put everybody in presenter mode. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, you guys are going to show. All right. Yeah.
Don't all talk at once, though. Please take your time.
All right. Let's see. Let me get down to Monique. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh. Okay, you guys should be able to unmute now. So if you do have something, come on off.
Hi guys, thank you. Thank you. I was trying to ask my question earlier. I posted it in the chat. I'm curious. No problem. This was a really good presentation. I'm asking about the integration of the Adobe DAM into Workfront. Have you all gone through that journey? Because we're at the point where our Workfront processes over here are really good and they're very tight. We got good data metrics, but I'm trying to take us to the next level where the creatives have all of that access in Workfront, as well as our communication consultants, so that we are living in the cloud, working off of the same file at the same time. So I'm curious if you've gone through that journey, if it's a difficult one to implement.
So we're going through it right now. So Aaron, this was one of the reasons why this whole thing came to be. So we're in the exact same state that you guys are. Our company uses AEM assets. However, we have lots of different Workfront instances and they're not connected. So a lot of us that have the Workfront environments are going through this practice right now. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing, we're in stage one, like what Joaquin's talking about, because what we're finding out is as we're talking to teams and groups, we got a lot of folks that use Frame.io, got a lot of assets out in Frame.io. We've got SharePoint in the company. We've got a ton of stuff in people's SharePoint. We do use Workfront, and so some people have left their stuff in Workfront. Like, well, okay, that's where I thought it was supposed to be. Some people are like, I don't use any of that. It's right here on my desktop. So yeah, so going through that, we're literally doing the requirements gathering and trying to kind of figure out, okay, what are we going to need to build and do? We do have an AEM team. So I'm on the Workfront side. I have a partner on the AEM side, and we're just beginning that journey. So I'd be happy to, as we kind of move along, bring some of that back to some of our WUGs, maybe as just a follow-on item that we kind of check in on throughout the year, because it's going to take us a while. The biggest thing that we have is we have those disparate systems, but our processes are not quite as tight, and so taxonomy is a little all over the place right now. So yeah, we've got some of that stuff to do, but I'm literally using this process.
Okay.
I'm literally going through.
Yeah, we do okay with SharePoint, like Microsoft Documents, where we just we put links in Workfront back to the SharePoint site. So, and because that integration, but where we're struggling is InDesign files, Photoshop files, Illustrator, and my goal is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen videos and stuff where the Adobe Creative Cloud and getting connected to the AEM to Creative Cloud can integrate that. But I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a clue. And so that's why I was curious.
Yeah, so I'm happy to bring, so we're looking at the exact same thing, just to make it easy for the creatives, right? With AEM assets, where it's just like, look, you guys, you're doing your stuff and you can pull your assets right from AEM. So, but right now I don't have anything other than, we're starting to make our documentation and in our requirements.
Okay.
One thing I might add to that is, obviously, when you're going to a DAM, you're thinking about metadata. So making sure that the metadata that you're collecting in Workfront is going to align with your DAM instance. Sometimes that can be a little bit different. So, when you're in custom forms and you have basically the value field as well as the label field on your drop-down lists, you're probably going to start leveraging those a little bit differently. So that might cause a little bit of a disruption in your instance, when a lot of times when you're reporting, you're kind of going to those value fields when you might have to change the way that system or that data pulls into your reports. So just be mindful of some of that when you're kind of building it out.
Yeah, we work on, not to monopolize this, but we work on heavy regulatory documents with a lot of text, and they change by client, and they're done in InDesign because they need to be bookletized and whatnot. But my goal is to get the consultants who are actually doing the writing of it access to the native source files, so we don't have to bog down the creatives with minutia text edit kind of work. That it'll increase speed, efficiency across the team. So that's my goal, but I'm like struggling with even where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if you saw the chat, but Monique has a great insight. I mean, and I'm the same way. I mean, there's only so much that we can know and do, right? So this is typically if you've got some partners or you learn from bugs or going to other types of events, you realize, hey, there are some partners that have done this type of integration. Who are they? Give me a name, give me a number, talk to someone like me, Monique, folks in the other WUGs. They can give you some contacts in terms of these people have done a lot of integration between, say, Workfront and AEM or Creative Cloud and AEM. You should go talk to them. So we just did a migration where we used Adobe. We took 2 other instances of Workfront and moved them into the one that I have. So Monique, yeah, you're right. Now I've got 3 instances of Workfront into mine. So yeah, I got bombarded this year. So that's all we do. We just basically just keep kludging stuff together. So it's all good.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for the
Anybody
question. That
else?
was very insightful, and thanks, Monique.
Yeah. Anybody else? Questions? Comments? Monique has offered her services in terms of if you guys have questions, partners, you're not sure who to go to. She knows everyone. That's true. So if you need a vendor name contact for just it's a small fee, but she takes Venmo, Zelle, credit card. She'll give you whatever you need.
Yeah, this is Kale. Thank you for answering my question about user adoption. I really appreciate that because that's right now is one of my biggest pain points. And then my second pain point is we are also integrated with AEM DAM, and we just recently lost our DAM librarian. So I've also kind of taken over that aspect. So now I'm making sure that all the metadata is aligned, and found that now that we have, because we had users that had so much access, we have so many forms, so many fields, so many templates, all this stuff, and now trying to audit that all and making sure that I can make sure that metadata is within all of those workflows as well. So yeah, it's going to be a process, but I think I just kind of wanted to share my frustration, or if anyone's ever kind of been through that or do own both platforms in their company. Yeah, it's like I said, I just got Workfront about 9 months ago, so fairly new to it. So yeah.
So I would comment on what Joaquin said at the beginning of the presentation, which is patience. I mean,
Yeah.
we've told our stakeholders, we've told our whole marketing group, this is going to take time for that. So Kelly, that's where we're at. We've got, issues with taxonomy. We've got groups that we're using like the same name field.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Different.
Okay, we're going through it all. I can relate, Kurt.
Yep. So I'm literally knee deep in it, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is going to take a little while, and you got to get agreement, right? So if you're going to change fields or move things, it's like, which one is acceptable to all of you guys? Like I told you guys, we had 2 other instances come into ours, so we had 3 basically Workfront instances now together, and everybody did something different. And we have a lot of fields that are named the same, but they've got totally different values, totally different. And I'm like, how'd you guys come up with this? Now we have to figure out how to do redo taxonomy. Yeah, it's not fun.
Totally. Yep.
Monique.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I had to come off of mute for that one. I've lived that pain, Kale, many times.
Yeah.
And some advice I will give you is doing cleanup isn't sexy. Like leadership is not gonna I'm not going to say they're not going to care, but they're not going to empathize. I'll use that word.
That's how I am right now. Like they could care less that
right.
all
Like
that
they
stuff
just,
is happening, the auditing.
they just want it done. They want it
Yeah.
to work, etc. And it also takes a lot of time. And it sounds like you do not have a lot of resources.
Nope.
You need time or people. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to advocate not only for yourself, but also why this is important. Right?
Totally.
Like, show them and tell them, like, hey, if we don't take the time to clean this up, when we go to automate this, I can't do that. Like, and list those things out. The more kind of blatant you can be, the better it'll be to kind of get that point across, because they don't always see or understand the ripple effect, the repercussions, etc. So you want to, but you also have to do it in like a salesman-y type of way. So they, you don't want to be Chicken Little saying that the sky is falling, or like, oh, that's just Kale always complaining. So it's a lot of balancing and meeting folks where they are. But I've been there. I feel like I live there at this point, but
well, ironically enough, I have a meeting actually at 1:00 kind of around this right now, and kind of those frustrations and kind of figuring that out and just making sure for them to trust me, because all of this is a huge change. And again, it's like if they want to see they want to see reports and have the right data, and they want to be able to automate things, like all this has to happen before that, right? And so yeah, I'm glad other people have been through this, because I think I'm crazy, and I feel like having both systems too, also including AEM, is just super fun. So yeah.
I mean, also don't be afraid to just make a new field and make those match, right?
Okay.
Which I'm sure some folks are probably like gasping at hearing that, but like if you have to do it quick and dirty, I would rather have duplicate fields than missing fields.
Okay,
So you might have to go that route just to get it to work, and then do the cleanup on the back end. That's something that I do often. Just know that future Kale is going to hate current Kale.
I like that. That is okay. I know that's the whole other piece, is that data migration as well. So that's what's interesting, because we literally, I think, have 641 fields and 40 forms. So I don't know if that's a lot or if that,
I mean, for somebody, that's a lot.
Okay, it is a lot. Okay, great.
For me, that's a goal.
Okay. Cool. A lot of duplicates, but yeah, I see where you're saying with that. It's not crazy to think about and do, right?
Yeah, and bulk editing is your friend. Group it by the thing that you're cleaning up. Select all, change it to the new one. I've made tons of reports. Just remember to delete them afterwards. That is like 3 columns. One is like the name of the thing. The second column is the current field, and then the third one is the new field or whatever we're changing it to.
Okay.
I group it by that current field, so then all of those values are together. Select all, change to the new one.
Okay, I got to figure that out. Okay, that would be helpful.
One thing I would like to add on that, I don't know if Monique, if you mentioned this, but even though you might have 60-some forms or whatever, you may want to create another form, which is called a legacy form. That's going to be those old fields, because obviously you don't want to lose data. Once you a field, that data is gone wherever it lists. So it's good to have that legacy field show up on all the objects where these fields are going to change. That way you can have some backwards view of those things. Eventually you'll deprecate those because they won't be used anymore, and you can then eliminate them once they become obsolete. But just don't, it's easy sometimes to either delete or remove and then forget that there's connection someplace else in your deal. So yeah, so you're probably going to create more than less initially. Just be aware of that. Kind of working through it too as well. And the other thing too, I would say is, so one of the things that's starting to happen, you can see a lot in marketing, is there's a lot of different sources of data out there. So there's your analytic data, there's your pre-planning data if you're using planning or anything like that. And so the need is to collect this data into one source. So that can also be your driver, or the kind of the reason why you want to standardize fields, because all these sources are coming together at the same time. And so you want to be able to match up with that. So oftentimes you can always use, well, the executives want it this way excuse, and that as your sort of metric is this is how they want to see the data. So that's how we're going to start collecting the data in the tool, and that helps you. Now you're going to have some groups that are like, well, we want data a very specific way, and you're like, okay, we can build that for you, but your group admin's probably going to manage that from now on. That's not going to be a responsibility as a system.
Yeah, we have to figure out the group the group admin part as well, and kind of figure again, also just find those power users, right? And those make those the group admins. So yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the feedback and recommendations.
Yeah, no worries. Good luck.
Sounds like this could be a follow-on topic, AEM Workfront, in one of our future WUGs, where maybe we just commiserate, and it's literally people that are, working on an integration, whether you're starting, middle, end, whatever, bring your how's it going type stuff, so that those of us that may be in the different states can say, oh my God, we're just about to do that and that didn't work, or we missed something like the legacy reporting, like, oh my God. So it sounds like maybe in the next month or so, we better do something for Workfront AEM. Everyone's doing Workfront AEM. Okay. Oh, I like that. Brittany says WUGs are like therapy sessions. So look, seriously, you guys, if we need to get together sooner rather than later, and this is our topic, and anyone that wants to joins, that's fine. I think it's very, very helpful. I'm going through a lot of the same stress that you guys are. So don't always have answers, but we may get through something that you haven't yet, and we can share a best practice that worked. So who knows?
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we don't go through things alone, that even if we might be sitting in a chair with an instance by ourselves, there's a community out there that has either gone through it before, is currently going through it, or is just about to engage the problem for the first time. So I think we've talked about this, the Experience League forums there, great resource for people. If you are just thinking like there's got to be a solution to my problem, there probably is. Someone's probably come across it and has shared that information. Or simply reach out to one of the experts or people in the know that are sitting here right now in today's session, that are good tools and resources that help kind of work through those things. And of course, tissues and alcohol are always some of this stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, you guys. We are at time, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and let you guys loose. Good luck, and we'll have some follow-on commentary and see if maybe an AEM Workfront session will be our next WUG. Thanks, you guys. Have a good day.
Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.